A couple of days ago, when I posted up my vinyl video about my greatest hits albums, I realized there was one greatest hits album that I did not put in that collection, and I wanted to try to find another framework to put it in. And I had a brainstorm going through my head. Whenever I go to a site like Rate Your Music or Amazon.com to read album reviews, I often hear about records where people say, the record sold a lot, but the group lost their own soul doing it, and they sold out, and they made money with their music, and they didn't care about creativity. So I decided to look into my vinyl collection and realize that I actually had 10 of the biggest selling albums around the world, from here and the UK, actually, in my specific case in this collection. And a lot of these were hand-me-downs and repeats from the collection of my boyfriend Scott Edwards, of course, and some other classic albums that I'll go into a little bit more. But the reason why I selected these particular albums is because these are not only some of the biggest selling albums of all time, but they're also some of the most groundbreaking, cutting-edge, and musically significant albums of all time as well. So I'm putting big selling albums back into a creative context. And I wanted to give a big shout out to all my friends in the VC, on YouTube, Facebook, and I'll get to all of you eventually in this video. And these albums are not in order of chronological year, but in order of sales figures. But I'm not going to mention those because this isn't about the sales so much. It's about big selling albums that were artistically wonderful. And we're going to start out with the big one, Michael Jackson. As Dave Chappelle said when being questioned about Michael Jackson's importance on his TV show, he just said, after a pause, he made Thriller, you know, and that's all I can say. I mean, I don't even know if I have to go into this album. Want to Be Starting Something, you know, Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, PYT, Pretty Young Thing. Even The Lady in My Life, a song that was not a hit, was covered by the jazz musician Stanley Jordan in the mid-'80s. Rod Temperton from Heatwave produced and wrote a lot of these albums. There's Mike. You know, there's no real need to show a label, but I wanted to show the album a little bit. The inner sleeve is long, kind of gone to pieces. This is from my family's record collection. They got it brand new in 1982. Brand new. Sorry about the faux Tiffany lamp up there showing. I just wanted to show you how good a shape this vinyl is in. You know, from being about 35 years old this November. So, you know, that's the big album. Obviously, the next one we've got here is Dark Side of the Moon. There's some great inside artwork here with lyrics. And yes, according to Scott, looking at YouTube videos, this album does in fact sync up with The Wizard of Oz twice, for twice the length of the movie. And I'm going to show you one other thing about this album. There's the back. It has a custom label, the Pink Floyd Pyramid. I didn't actually hear this album until about 6 years ago. It's one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. It's one of their best known, but just the way it flows, I love it. This is the album that I actually did not include in the last one. The Eagles' Greatest Hits, 1971 through 75. I don't know if you can see it, but that is actually raised, and so is the name The Eagles. Probably can't see it. And in this case, this record has another custom label. That's the second side. This album included an un-album track, an unhit called Desperado, which was the title of one of their albums. And the inclusion of that in Tequila Sunrise seemed to have upset Don Henley because he didn't like them taking out of the album context they were originally in, but you know, the Eagles' Greatest Hits, 1971 through 75. A lot of critics feel it flowed better than the studio albums they had at the time. There's mixed opinions on that, I'm sure. And here we have Saturday Night Fever. This is an album that just really, broke the Bee Gees even further than they already were with Jive Talkin', and You Should Be Dancing was already out, but this just included that song, but it really put it out there. I think it's actually the best-selling soundtrack album ever made. I'm not sure about that. There's Mr. Travolta. This includes the Tavares, More Than a Woman. The Bee Gees version of that song, Yvonne Elliman, If I Can't Have You, The Fifth of Beethoven, Walter Murphy, Kool and the Gang, Boogie Shoes, Casey and the Sunshine Band, The Tramps, Disco Inferno, and Open Sesame by Kool and the Gang. Amazing, amazing album. Probably the best example of the disco era recorded that you can get from an iconic movie from 1977. The Eagles' Greatest Hits album was recorded in 1970. It was released in 1976, and Pink Floyd, of course, was 73. Sorry, not to mention years. And here we have Rumors in 1977. This album had Don't Stop, Dreams, Go Your Own Way, You Make Love and Fun, another hit parade album to a certain degree. This just has the traditional Warner Brothers label. It's an RCA Record Club release. But it also has something my original vinyl copy of this didn't have, and it was this lyric booklet printed on high quality cardboard. There's the Fleetwood Mac Penguins. There's the group at that time. The married couples in that group were getting a divorce during this album. It really shows you what marital tension can bring out in an album. There's a lot of beauty and poetry on this album. One of the best, it's not really a West Coast album, but it has that West Coasty pop rock kind of feel to it. These are songs that, define a lot of the late 70s. You still hear them all the time today. They somehow don't get radio wear. Another album like that, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I did this in another video as a standalone album, but show you the Beatles again. And there's they are, Fab Four. Another Eagles, Hotel California. We have Hotel California, Life in the Fast Lane, some Asylum Records. I don't know if it has a custom label. It actually does have a custom label. The Eagles, Hotel California. Excellent album. A lot of great hits. And here we have Phil Collins from 1985, No Jacket Required. It has Susu Studio, One More Night, Take Me Home, which was a single that I bought because I loved the unique percussion sound of that. This has the original lyric sheet. There's Phil Collins. This has the regular Atlantic label. The next album is the debut of Boston from 1976. This is the album that had More Than a Feeling on it. And there's Boston. The interesting part of this is that quintet you see there was actually the touring band. I don't know which one of them. I'm sure somebody in the VC can help me. In the studio was actually, I believe, 2 guys. And maybe I'm wrong on that. But it was an interesting little project. This has the regular Epic label. From that time, the orange Epic label, I'm sure I've shown you. Big AOR classic. And the final album, Lionel Richie's Can't Slow Down. There's Lionel jumping down the big golden fire pole. It's just the 80s Motown label. Nothing special, maybe some unusual kind of font. There's the lyric sheet. It says All Night Long, Running with the Night, you know, Hello, Stuck on You, Penny Lover. My favorite cut on it is Love Will Find a Way, which my friend Henrique and I talk about a lot. You know, this is very far from the Commodores, but in commercial terms, this was Lionel's biggest album. So there you go. 10 albums in my collection that were some of the biggest selling of all time, and also artistic masterpieces, at least to me. I wanted to give a shout out to Doug Armstrong over at Fat City Vinyl. I wanted to give another big shout out to Daddy Sensei Silver, Keith Emerton, Ben Minot over at Oddity Archive, another vinyl collector, and Scott Gallant at Scotty's Record Shop, my friend Henrique Hopkins, you know, my mom and dad for exposing me to Thriller like so many other people in my generation. And just, you know, just remember something. You know, if people say it's uncool that albums, you know, sold a lot and they're sold out because they made a lot of money, sometimes they're also absolute artistic masterpieces too. And that's the case with all these 10 albums. Enjoy your music with whatever the case. Love and peace.